Thank you so much for being here, Rod. I'll give you the opportunity soon to say hello to the team. But this is our fair trade team. It's almost 140 committed staff across the world working in supporting producers and in driving marketing and commercial relationships, as well as in developing some of the cornerstones of our program, our standards, our certification system. So we're really honored to have Rod join us today. I'm very grateful for your time and your space to engage in a conversation today, um, Rod. As some of you may know, and I'll let Rod go deeper into this. Black and Bold is one of our exceptional industry partners and brands in the coffee sector. As Billy mentioned, Rod is one of the co-founders of Black and Bold, and also serves as their chief values officer, which is something I want to get a bit deeper into, which is special in itself. Black and Bold has had admirable growth in terms of distribution, always keeping their mission at the center, and that is very much what Rod's role is about. But I'll pass it on to you, Rod, initially just to say hello to the team and to elaborate a bit more as to what being a chief values officer for a brand like Black and Bold means.
As mentioned, my name is Rod Johnson, co-founder and chief values officer for Black and Bold Specialty Coffee. I don't know how familiar you are with our organization. Nevertheless, Black and Bold Specialty Coffee is a business that I started with my friend Pernell back in 2018 out of his garage. So we have a lot of the DNA of a true entrepreneurial story, whereas we're just retrofitting that space into something a little bit more useful. And for us, it was to tap into our passion for these beverages that fueled our lives, but then also for community. And we ideated a little bit on what that meant for us, and ultimately we landed on creating this coffee company that leads with impact. We'll dive in a little bit later, but to the point of what does it mean to be a chief values officer? Formally, it means that I am responsible for all of our marketing, HR, legal, and standing up our social impact mission. I handle all of the other functions, or at least those functions report up to me. And what I'm most proud about is standing up our social impact mission that we'll talk a little bit more in detail about. So all in all, happy to connect with you all today and looking forward to diving into this conversation, Felipe.
Thank you so much, Rod. Let's start a bit by, or let's start with a focus on something that I personally find exceptional, and you're one of the few brands that we work with that is, or one of the outstanding brands that we work with, in which we are supporting the empowerment and the livelihoods and the development of youth, not only in the communities where your brand is present in the US, but also through the Fair Trade program in communities across your sourcing regions. We've seen some great examples of what the Fair Trade Premium has been able to advance in countries like Peru and like Nicaragua. Can you tell us a little bit as to how you developed this 5% pledge for our youth, and how the work that Fair Trade does in communities or at origin fit with your mission?
Yeah. So while Black and Bold is based in Des Moines, Iowa, so the middle of Middle America, I grew up in Gary, Indiana, in a town that's just about 30 minutes outside of Chicago. And you may or may not be familiar with it, but has a very similar plight and story of many inner cities in America. And fortunate for Pernell and I, we were able to overcome those obstacles that people within those communities unfortunately had to face. And understanding that that was, or rather, having lived that, that was something that, or that is something that continues to be a North Star for me. How can I be a resource? How can I be a vessel for people who are in similar situations? And so that's one piece of it. The second piece of it, and growing up in Gary, we realized that there was community around coffee, despite not having coffee shops, right? People would congregate at like a local restaurant or at a McDonald's, but there weren't any dedicated coffee spaces, though people were communing over coffee. So we saw that and we wanted to find out how could we live within that overlap of the Venn diagram, if you will. So what we landed on is hardwiring 5% of our gross profits, and or rather committing 5% of our gross profits to organizations that support youth in need, so that one, our impact grows as our company grows, but then also we give in good years and in tougher years. It's not we just feel like that model was most authentic in how we wanted to show up in community, and for us that was really non-negotiable. So that's how we support the communities of our consumers. How we support the communities of our producers is where our relationship with fair trade comes in. We have that same promise, and we're very intentional about sourcing fair trade products, so much so that I think this stat is correct. Last year, we were one of the top 30 roasters that had sourced fair trade coffee in one way, shape, or another. And as a result of that, we have been able to generate over $100,000 for the Community Development Fund. So not only are we supporting the communities of our consumers, we're supporting end to end our supply chain. And that's something that, again, we're really proud of, and was very intentional.
Thank you so much for that. And that's where I think this is an exceptional partnership in the sense that both Fairtrade USA and Black and Bold are social enterprises, and in the partnership that we do together, and in your commitment to the communities of consumers, we're really working across the entire value chain, and hopefully one day we can get those two communities together, and something we're going to continue to do better from a storytelling and connection perspective. And yes, your data is right. Last year, you mobilized more than 100,000, almost $111,000 to community development funds at Origin, and since our partnership in 2018. I think you have already mobilized close to $400,000 in community development funds to the across different origins. You had the opportunity to visit one of the cooperatives in Peru recently, Rod. Can you tell us a bit as to what you saw there, and how it all came together in this commitment to mission?
Yeah, absolutely. So earlier this year, I had the opportunity to travel to San Ignacio, Peru, and let's pause there. What it takes to get there was I wasn't ready for it. All right. So again, I'm in Des Moines. All right. So I had to travel from Des Moines to Atlanta, Atlanta to Lima, Lima to Chiclayo, and then from Chiclayo driving 8 hours up a mountain to a small town called San Ignacio, Peru. That's the most traveling I'd ever done, at least in one concentrated area. So, or time period. So that in and of itself gave me like a deeper appreciation for what it takes for the coffee to actually get into the cup, let alone all of the TLC that goes into making sure that the quality is outstanding. So, from the inception, the trip started off being very enlightening, but the trip came about as a way of us leaning more into being a social enterprise by way of our commitment to being a B Corp. As B Corp has are evolving their requirements and their assessment, there is more of an emphasis on environmental, and how companies are being aware of the impact that they have on the environment, and the plans that the plans and the continuous efforts that they will instill to do something about it. And because we want to continue to lead with purpose, and that B Corp badge is very recognizable. We want to make sure that we're doing what we can, and controlling what's our controllables. So part of that is one, just understanding the supply chain in its entirety, and understanding our impact. And we work with SGS, or are working with SGS, as a part of, again, understanding what our carbon footprint is, and doing and creating a plan to reduce that, as much as possible. And that ultimately led me to traveling to Peru to commune, break bread, and learn from the folks who are responsible for producing our coffee. I learned how reliant San Ignacio is on the coffee industry. In fact, I think something to the tune of 90% of their economy is predicated on coffee. So that again just deepened my appreciation. And then I also understood, or learned how they put to use the community development fund, whether it's educating their youth on how to grow up in the family business, if it's enhancing um, their harvesting practices, and how they're able to um, uh, really accentuate, or bring out the natural flavors of these different coffees by their natural practices. It was just a wealth of information that I had the opportunity to take advantage of, and grateful for SGS for sending me there, because it definitely gave me, or fed the appetite that I had to travel to origin.
It's a beautiful story supporting youth in the US and abroad. It's interesting that you highlight also the focus on the environment and your commitments both to nature and to climate. In that particular cooperative in Peru, in Soli Cafe, actually, one of their managers is part of our coffee consultation committee. I don't know if you had the chance to meet Javier while you were there. Some of the most important programs with the community development funds in Peru, in particular, also have an environmental focus. Part of the needs assessment identified or developed by these communities have prioritized areas like soil fertility and
Mhm.
productivity programs, as well as reforestation, with shade management, and water protections. And I think that's a really interesting integral approach to the community development funds, where there's a youth focus in the communities of consumers, and there is, of course, an education and access to health and youth empowerment focus on the communities at origin, while an integral commitment also to nature and to healthy soils. And this is something that we discussed in our previous conversation, is something that Fair Trade and the team that you see here in the screen is going to double down on the risks that climate change and the adaptation to different weather patterns will be fundamental to continue to create resiliency as we walk alongside um, these communities. I wanna stand still a bit in that word resiliency. How did the focus around your 5% pledge came about in the initial years of the organization, and how important do you think the investment in youth is for the resiliency of those communities?
Yeah, it's extremely important. I can only, think about or what immediately comes to mind, just my own experience, and how, nonprofits like the Boys and Girls Club, or just community at large, were responsible for me overcoming some of those obstacles that I mentioned earlier. And, it's not that folks who are in those communities don't have the skills, they just don't have the access. And so, by way of us resourcing the folks who are actually doing the work, these nonprofit organizations, we feel that we are equipping youth to realize their fullest potential. And that will always be our North Star. It governs and impacts all of our decisions, whether it be retailers that we work with or partners that we bring on board. Like, for example, we brought on Deion Sanders as our social change leader. Now, granted, he has a huge microphone and is hugely popular, but youth and youth empowerment is at the core of his efforts, whether it be how he instills in his own family or the investment that he makes into the youth by way of his day job. It was through that lens that we look to bring on somebody as intimately into our fold as that. So, if it's not aligned to youth empowerment, that's the first layer that we filter everything through. And if it doesn't meet that, then it doesn't matter how profitable it can be or how cool it may be. If it deviates away from our impact, the impact that we're trying to have on youth in need across America and beyond, then we choose not to pursue that.
That's beautiful to hear as well. And I think that's another very important area of alignment and of synchronicity. We our North Star is also about making sure that producers and workers are the protagonists of change, and our system very different or in comparison to other programs really focuses on developing or supporting the capacities for true empowerment and for true collective decision making, whether it's $300,000 or $100,000 in the community development fund. Just the act of coming together as a community
Yeah,
to strengthen your social tissue and to make sure that the youths are protagonists and women also in
yeah,
coffee growing communities where it is not the norm to be the protagonists of change. Hopefully we can take the on prime time once also to Origin to see that
that would be awesome.
empowerment happening across across the source the regions where you source from. You mentioned the relationship with retailers. It truly has been inspiring to watch how such a commitment to have a brand be a force of good and such a commitment to, as you mentioned, always put youth empowerment
Yeah,
forward and having a very clear North Star, how that is also a good decision for business. The momentum that Black and Bold, I think it's the only black-owned coffee company with national distribution in the U.S. Amongst many other accolades and recognitions that you've received as you engage with these retailers and you expand your reach. What do you think has differentiated
yeah.
your brand from others and has this commitment to mission served as a competitive advantage?
Absolutely. Um, I don't know when the last time you've been grocery shopping, but one thing that retailers don't need is another coffee bag on the shelf. Like, it's enough coffee options and to select from. It is the epitome of a commodity. But what they do need though is velocity and a brand that their consumers can believe in. There is a heightened sense of conscious consumerism, especially today, where people care about where their dollars are going. In fact, the buzzword or the buzz phrase is, voting with your wallet. And as that consciousness continues to evolve and take or be the North Star for consumers, we present that option for retailers. Ultimately, partnering with businesses that do good is good business. I say all that though, but none of it matters if the coffee is bad, right? So it's like we get the mission could be awesome. We can give all the money in the world to these organizations. We can have the coolest founders, and we can give people an opportunity to shop their values. But if the coffee is trash, then nobody cares about what we do. So we present a premium option for retailers to offer to their consumers, and one that is not out of reach. We are right at that like entry level to premium. which speaks to another thing that we offer retailers. You know, we present as a, or we are a brand that meets consumers where they are. You know, our go-to-market strategy was by way of e-com as opposed to a brick and mortar, and that's because we wanted to make it easier for folks to be able to participate in our social impact. Yeah, we could have had profound impact in our own backyard in our local coffee shop, but what we are trying to solve, or at least the problem that we are addressing is much bigger than our geographical location. And by working with retailers, we allow for more folks to participate in that by doing something that they were going to do anyway, and that's, you know, buying cups of coffee. We get a chance to upgrade them and upgrade their consciousness with it as well. And then the last thing is that, you know, we have receipts. Like we are, that they're tangible results that we boast, and retailers get a chance to share that story as well. Felipe, you mentioned earlier that, you know, we've been able to generate over $400,000 by way of our sourcing habits. We also have been able to generate almost a $500,000 through contributions. So, you know, it's that's not play, right? And granted, you know, it's not. And when you compare it to, you know, legacy brands, it's, we got a long way to go. But for businesses, a business that started in the garage, that's been bootstrapped this entire time, that's something that we're really proud of. And retailers understand that, especially those that are more intentional about who is on their shelves.
Something to be immensely proud of, indeed, and we are not only partners but fans and admirers. Also, what you mentioned, the quality, and one of the angles perhaps that we could communicate better, and that is sometimes unknown about the community development funds, is that the resources that brands and consumers of Black and Bold are putting into the communities at origin also go a long way in terms of quality improvements,
Absolutely.
whether it's new varieties and nurseries or whether it's funding the technical assistance and the education at the cooperative level that allow you to lead both with purpose and with quality. And as you mentioned, similar to consumers of communities of consumers, we truly believe that the capacities are there, that what is missing was access to investment resources,
Absolutely.
but that both at both ends of the value chain, communities have the potential to drive change and to be protagonists of great change when given the opportunity and the resources to do it now.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
We saw some great stories around access to dentistry in Peru, around scholarships in Nicaragua, around some of the environmental projects that we were referring to, and I think Cynthia Castillo, our producer support officers from Peru, might be in the call, and we can dive deeper a bit if you want later in terms of the impact of the Community Development Fund. I was curious, what are some of your favorite stories from the organizations that you support in the US, and
Gosh.
how that support is driving change?
Yeah, you're asking me to pick amongst my children now. I got so many stories to share. Prior to work to starting Black and Bold, I worked in the nonprofit space as an academic and healthcare fundraiser. So what I really enjoyed about that was hearing the stories and why folks wanted to, you know, invest in these organizations that meant something to them. It's like, oh gosh, you know, they gave me a full ride scholarship, or they helped my kid when we were in the, or helped my family when we were in the NICU, or you know, I got an internship in my field and now I'm a professional XYZ. I wouldn't that, so those stories were always something that I was drawn to, and now I get a chance to help elevate that for folks who are within those organizations. So some key stories that come to mind. Here in Des Moines, I sit on the board for Biodegrees Foundation, and what they do is provide 529 college savings accounts for kids here in the city, and they gamify it, right? They basically go, hey, if you have perfect attendance this year, you get $50 in your college savings account. Or if your grown up comes to parent teacher conference, you'll get $100 in your savings account. And it's not astronomical numbers, but studies show something as little as $500 earmarked for college makes a kid 4 times more likely to go off to school or to pursue post-secondary educational opportunities. That's awesome. And the fact that we get a chance to support at the ground level, these kids' educational pursuit is something that we're really proud of. In addition to that, we support CompUdopt in Houston, Texas. And to your point about access, excuse me, what they do is refurbish old technology, so your old tablets, your cell phones, your computers, and they give them to families who otherwise can't afford technology, giving them that digital access to be competitive and marketable in today's society. And that's something that we're really excited about. Another organization that we support is City Growers in New York. This is an urban farming community that has transformed the top of this like 30,000 square foot building into a working and functional garden. And the kids are learning the importance of healthy eating and how to grow their own food, and they use that food to support the communities and shelters in the tri-state area. So like those are just real tangible results that we have been able to assist by way of our social impact mission.
Thank you for that. It's yeah, it's just it gives me goosebumps just as the range of yeah of issues and
Yeah.
of areas that you are focused on.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
Let me
uh,
say this, Felipe, and that's intentional. We didn't want to just focus on one area. Back in my day, in nonprofit, like, hey, you can give to the areas of greatest need, and there isn't one particular disparity that impacts youth in need. It can be economical, it can be behavioral, it can be environmental. There's just so many disparities and so many hurdles that our most vulnerable communities have to endure. And what we figured that we would do is, we would try to support as many. How can I put this? It's more about supporting more communities as opposed to having one singular focus or one area of expertise that we want to invest in. So if you were to look at the 14 organizations that we support, some of them address food insecurities. Some of them, as I mentioned, are urban farms. Others provide general mentorship and behavioral exercises and programs to help in that way. Some of them are, again, provide the digital access. There isn't one singular focus outside of helping youth in need in these cities where Black and Bold is present.
mm. I think that's also a really interesting angle, and it's the engagement with the communities in then defining what are the areas of support and investment that are priority, and that's very much in line with the philosophy and the spirit of the community development funds, and that's why some of the projects go in terms of quality improvement, other goes in terms of environment, in terms of education, access to dentistry, capacity development. This is something also that we do not focus on a specific area as the fair trade movement, as your partners, but really put it in the hand of the communities and of those that are on the ground to define the needs and to define the solutions that will work best across the areas that they prioritize
Absolutely.
without having a very yeah, a very limited focus in one particular area. There's it's just fantastic to see so many. areas of overlap and of alignment in terms of what we want to achieve together. I want to focus a bit on leadership,
Yeah.
Rod. The You have mentioned it in this conversation a couple of times that you lead with purpose, that you lead with your North Star of youth empowerment and community resiliency. We think about leading with values and other brands or perhaps some of the competitors in your categories think about leading with sales and with distribution. What does leadership mean for Black and Bold as a brand and for you as a
Yeah.
co-founder?
Yeah, it's a series of receipts. What that can be, protecting our supply chain by way of our relationship with fair trade. It can be, or it has been, investing in our team, in professional development. It's being transparent with our community and letting folks know, what we are about, where we stand on particular issues, and taking a stand, if you will. And then all in all, holding our product to a ridiculous standard from when it comes to quality. All right, we don't play about that. Black and Bold specialty beverages, it's not a marketing based statement. Like, that's a fact based statement. Specialty beverages is there's a lot of science that goes into it. I didn't realize how much science went into it until our business continued to scale. But there's a lot of technology and equipment that goes into making sure that that deliciousness is consistent. So, just being leaders in that regard, and again, holding ourselves to that ridiculous standard is something that that's how we define leadership. We're not picking performance or purpose. Both of those are important to us through the lens of leadership, as I just mentioned. Again, if the coffee is bad, nobody cares about the mission. If we got good margins, but our practices are inconsistent, then the brand is going to crumble. So we try to be leaders in all of the areas that matter.
It's music to my ears, at least, to hear that level of commitment and leading first with purpose, but also the realization that when business and brands as social enterprises want to become a force for good, it is good for business
Yeah.
as well. I'm sure in that journey and with that unwavering commitment to mission, there have been also some trade-offs and some tough leadership decisions. What are some of those toughest leadership lessons or trade-offs that you have experienced along the way?
Yeah, let me think. There's a lot. I got a lot of scars, a lot of war wounds that I'm hiding under this pink shirt right now. Let's see. Momentum's not a strategy. At the top of 2020 or during 2020, our brand picked up a lot of steam because our native destination was e-com. So as the world shut down and people's habits were interrupted and flipped upside down, aka they couldn't go to their normal coffee shop, our business ballooned, right? We were able to welcome more folks into our ecosystem because our .com presence was much more mature than some of our competitors. But things got back normal. People went back outside, and we couldn't necessarily rely on that. How can I put it in terms of percentage? During that time, our .com sales accounted for 90% of that full pie. Today, not so much, right? Our focus is on other channels like retail, like away from home, and then eventually brick and mortar. You didn't hear that from me. That was a little birdie who said that. But we had to reevaluate because that momentum felt good, but eventually it came to a halt. So that was a lesson that we needed to learn in real time, right? Like we had to ramp up for it first and foremost. Like that wasn't something that we could have predicted, and that and with that we experienced some growing pains, and then as it slowed down, we experienced different types of growing pains. So we epitomize building the plane as you fly it. In addition to that, though, with said plane, there's more a lot of people that's on that plane, and you can't do everything. So we've made some hires that we regret. That's probably the best way for me to put it, right? People who didn't necessarily believe in a brand, people who may have had more of a transactional relationship with the job as opposed to being invested in the work that we are doing. While I am the entrepreneur, Pernell is the entrepreneur, we learned that we benefit from hiring people who are entrepreneurial in their own right. There's the entrepreneur and then the entrepreneur. And by not hiring people who had a focus on building, it was to our minimal detriment. But again, a lesson nonetheless. And then a fun one, proofread everything, right? You don't want to have labels out in the market that misspell Ethiopia. That's just gonna take away from your credibility, right? People don't trust you if you can't spell. It's a lot. This has been very enlightening, despite some of those lessons being tough. It only makes us better in the long run, as cliche as that may be. But I know now to measure twice, cut once. I know what questions to ask in an interview, and I know that our business and our revenue model needs to be balanced, and we can't over index in one sector over the other. So that's the name of the game when you're running a business is stay on your toes and not your heels because you got to be nimble.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Rod. And yeah, very interesting how leadership and culture are needed to reinforce that wholehearted and unwavering commitment to mission and to the North Star. And you mentioned a couple of things that I'm personally very interested in, and as we go into our strategic planning process for 2030, as Fair Trade certified as Fair Trade USA, we're really looking at them and would love to just bounce some um, uh, or to receive some insights on your end of how you're seeing this as a brand. When Fairtrade started, I had the privilege to be there 25 years ago. First, there wasn't any conscious consumption. It was very much a new promise
Yeah.
out there, and the soil that had to be fertilized with other labels. We were perhaps one of the first ones to bring in a conscious consumption offer. That has changed. That has changed immensely. When we started, it was only brick and mortar. The only tool that we had on our hands to tell the story was a retail shelf with a label. For
Mhm.
fast forward, and perhaps the only way to do marketing was through broadcasting stations or through
Mhm.
radio at huge investment levels to get the story across to the producers. And we did bring some rock stars. I remember Chris Martin back in the day from Coldplay having a fair trade tattoo in his hand in some of the uh, of the concerts. But fast forward 25 years to today, and e-commerce is the new arena. You were e-commerce
Yeah.
first, and now you're diversifying into other areas. You have the social web and stars and influencers in their own right, like Deion Sanders and many others, driving the conversations of your consumers and a generation of consumers that has an elevated level
Yeah.
of awareness and
Right.
of consciousness. And I'm really excited just to think of how we reinvent this movement together, given these new opportunities. Of course, risks have increased in
Yep.
the countries of origin, migration, climate, conflict, um, nature uh, laws, but I'm really excited to see how we can reinvent this movement of conscious consumerism and mission together. Would love to hear some insights on your end around
Oh,
that.
yes, let's build. I'm all for that. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. Like we're true to this. This is who we are. Again, we lead with impact, and this is today's iteration of Black and Bold, and I'm looking forward to like how we continue to pour into that and continue to evolve. And having partners like you and you all's expertise, resource, and accessibility, that's only gonna benefit us. We'll do what we can to contribute to the conversation, but looking forward to having them nonetheless.
Thank you. And likewise, are there any areas that come to mind as to how we can do things better and be a more, what did you mention, not on your feet, but on your toes, also a more nimble and more a valuable partner as we build this journey together forward?
Yeah, well, let me sit on that. All right. I'm sure there are some things, but let me sit on that. I think that it's a great question, as Laura just dropped in the chat. But yeah, let me think about that because I'm sure that there are some, and I would want to bring in some other folks within our Black and Bold team, like our CEO, who has an entirely different POV, some folks from our sales team and our ops team who may have some insight. I know for sure that they would be great contributors to that conversation. So let's reconvene and take that one offline.
Thank you, Rod. I know that this is your team and that we are willing to to adapt also and to change and to grow as we build together. This is precisely the types of brand partners and leaders that we want to engage with as we reinvent the next chapter of fair trade. As you look ahead 5 to 10 years from now, what's your vision for the broader, more systemic role that Black and Bold can play for reshaping the economy, not only of Black-owned businesses, but of mission-driven businesses across the board?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, what we are planning to do is lean more into being an innovation hub of coffee and tea-based beverages. We've introduced moments, if you will, with our ready-to-drink cold brew, and then some other innovation that we felt was pretty cool and help shake up an otherwise stale industry. We'll continue to focusing on scaling our impact. A personal goal of mine is to have that contribution to those nonprofit organizations exceed $1 million. We're halfway there, and if math is right, I think that we should be able to accomplish that here within the next 5 years. So looking forward to that. And then, where possible, deepening our fair trade sourcing, whether that be like investing in long-term contracts or co-funding some of those producer-led quality projects. Like those are all on the table, and would love to explore how to bring those to life. To your question about the broader role, we want to again to position Black and Bold as an example that you don't have to sacrifice performance and profit for being purpose driven. That doing good is doing good business. That mission driven companies can't just be like inspirational pro posts, or in case of emergency break glass. Like these businesses, these enterprises, in my opinion, are the backbone of our society, and there is a growing appetite for that. So Black and Bold will do what it can to, one, stay here, but then two, influence the next generation of business owners to incorporate their values into their business pursuits.
I love the boldness in your thinking and in your vision, and would love
Can't
to
help it.
would love to explore new pathways of you mentioned that the possibility of crowdfunding. We've been experimenting with some chocolate and tea brands around not only the brand mobilizing the premium through the community development funds, and we're excited about the possibilities of connecting the community of consumers also in a more direct manner
Yeah.
with the projects that are being advanced, some of the ones that you saw in Peru.
Just want to, double click on how grateful we are for the partnership. I do appreciate having some time to chat with you all and share Black and Bold story, crack some jokes, and just have a good time. That's something that I think is needed these days. So on a lot of levels, I appreciate you all making a space for it, and then also appreciate the offer to continue to build. I love what we've been able to do so far, and I look forward to future iterations of our partnership. So again, no questions, but just want to express like sincere gratitude, not only for this moment, but just what we do overall.
Thank you, Rod, and it is truly mutual. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your intention. Thank you for your boldness, for inspiring us, and for showing not only our team but other partners and the society of consumers that we want to influence of what is possible
Yeah.
when our program and our system comes together in strength with brands that put purpose truly at the center of what they do. Thank you for trusting in fair trade. Know that this is your house always, that this is your team, that we are beyond partners. We're truly in this together to transform agency and communities and hopefully capitalism at large. And I take some really interesting goalposts perhaps about reaching also $1 million in community development funds investment and in connecting our communities of consumers and communities of producer um, closer together. Let's continue building on this example with purpose and resolve, team, and enormous gratitude for the opportunity to talk to you today, Rod.
Thank y'all. I appreciate it. Thank you, Felipe.